Welcome in, back with you on a Thursday evening, and I am joined once again by the one, the only, the man that needs no introduction. So how do you possibly give him an introduction? Kyle Henderson. Kyle, how you doing this evening?
What's up, man? Happy to talk college football playoff rankings. It's that time of the year. This is where the season starts. This is where we get going. There's been some rankings that have been released. We're going to talk about those rankings and where the Alabama Crimson Tide sits, where the Ohio State Buckeyes sit. This is a pivotal week of another action-packed college football slate, so happy to be here with you, Ty.
See, I'm really disappointed in myself now because if I would have thought ahead, I'd have had a chef's hat because I'm about to cook. I'm about to enter my ether because I'm so glad you said that. First and foremost, we need to talk about the college football playoff rankings. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as you trickle in here, talk to us about what you thought about Alabama LSU. Of course, we're going to talk about that. Don't worry, we'll hit the preview for this weekend, but the meat and potatoes, how does Alabama get to the college football playoff? And I have a major issue with the rankings. I haven't told you what my major issue was as we were in the green room. I kind of gave you a heads up that I'm about to go a little bit scorched earth because there is a major fallacy within the rankings. First, let's understand the top 10. I'll quickly give them to you all. You have Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4, Washington at 5, Oregon follows at 6, followed by Texas 7, Bama comes in at 8, Ole Miss at 9, followed by Penn State to round it out. Here's the issue. I don't care about how they rank the first three, right? Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, tinker with that however you want. 4 and 5 don't make sense, Kyle. How in the world do you have Washington, if you're the playoff committee, at 5, yet you have Oregon at 6? What that tells me is they value Oregon more than they value Texas, more than they value Bama, but then why doesn't Washington get the credit for how much they value Oregon? And if, in fact, they do believe Florida State has the more impressive resume, we must ask ourselves the simple question. Where is that resume based off of? The LSU win. Well, if LSU is that impressive of a win and it's more impressive than the Oregon win, then why in the world didn't Bama move any for beating LSU by double digits? It makes absolutely no sense in their own basis. They have FSU ahead. FSU, yes, they beat Duke. Duke isn't ranked anymore. Clemson isn't Clemson this year. Their best win is LSU. Alabama, ladies and gentlemen, has beat 3 ranked teams. 3 ranked teams being 9 Ole Miss, 13 Tennessee, 19 LSU, and they've done it by a double-digit margin all the way around. The correct ranking should be, however you do your top 3, 4 should be Washington, 5 Florida State, 7 probably Texas because they do have that heads up, but we're going to talk about how I think Alabama can really gain favor. Then at 7, you have Alabama. Oregon should be 8. I don't understand where the committee is thinking here because if they value Oregon that much, then why in the world is Washington behind Florida State when they're both undefeated and Washington has a win over the number 6 team in the country? Kyle, make this make sense to me because every time I talk about this, I get madder and madder.
Well, if you want to get even madder, then look at the playoff committee and the representatives that are actually on the list. So you have Boo Corrigan, who is the chair right now, and he's from NC State. Where's NC State? Well, that's in the ACC. You also have the Michigan athletic director, who is on the committee. So, I mean, if you look through the committee members and you start to kind of slice through it, it stinks. I don't like how it adds up, and I get it. These individuals, have clearly done a great job to get to that point in their career, whether they're athletic director or whether they're a CEO or whatever. Actually, and it's a strange combination of people. For example, one of the representatives is the athletic director at Virginia Union. It's not even an FBS school. So, like, these are the type of people who
I didn't know they had athletics.
Yeah. So look, great people. They're athletic directors. They're, one guy's the chief financial officer of an energy company. But college football wise, like, I cannot believe that the world of college football is in the hands of these people. And this is a really good sign that this is the last year of this format because clearly it's a disarray. And I think when we look forward, there's going to be some shakeups within the top 8. But the way that they have the rankings right now, it really doesn't make sense to me. One of the things that Boo Corrigan spoke about after the latest release of the playoff rankings is about Florida State. He said, we like the wins over Duke. We like the wins over Clemson. That was in overtime. You guys watched the Clemson game with me, right? Like, Clemson and Florida State went into overtime, and it was a missed field goal by Clemson. Otherwise, Florida State loses that game. Florida State should have also lost against Boston College. Look, I've watched Florida State the last 2 weeks. The quarterback is great. Jordan Travis and their wide receivers are really good as well. So what Boo said, who's the chair of the board, he said that they liked the win over Duke, Clemson, and the win against LSU. I do like the win against LSU too. We just saw LSU go against Alabama, and we're going to talk more about that. When in regards to what it does for the Pac-12, they love the Pac-12. There's 2 representatives on the committee from the Pac-12 that represent the Pac-12, and they like Oregon's win over Utah. They love that win. In fact, Utah's athletic director is on the board. He's a committee member. So you got to think that he has that feedback, and he's seen Oregon firsthand. So he likes the win by Oregon. And this is the problem, is they're looking at style points more than schedule of strength. Getting back to Boo Corrigan, who's the chair, he said, Florida State is scoring 40 points a game and allowing 17. Well, of course, look at their schedule. And same thing when they came up with Oregon. They said, look at Oregon. They're a top 5 offense and a top 15 defense. Yeah, Bo Nix, he's a great player, 100%. These are good teams. He scored 6 touchdowns against Cal, but it's against Cal. Right? Like, look at their schedule of strength. Who is Oregon beaten outside of Utah? Yeah,
that's Washington, their marquee win.
Yeah, so you have Washington, and Washington's marquee win was against Oregon, which is a good win. But they're going to have Utah this weekend. But when you look to the Pac-12, I just don't feel that it adds up to what Alabama is, and that's not being a homer. I mean, look at Alabama's schedule. This gauntlet that they just got past on the road at Texas A&M. Right? All the weapons that they have. And that's Jimbo's fault. Jimbo has not led that team to where they need to be. They have every single thing on that team. They look at them against Ole Miss. That was down to a field goal, right? And then they went to, then they played overachieving Arkansas team, and then they beat a ranked Tennessee team, and then they beat one of the most electric offenses in college football in LSU. So I think overall the committee, what they're valuing Alabama is on that loss against Texas. They were penalized for playing a really good team. Texas did beat them straight up 100%. If those 2 teams play today, who is the better team? You look at Alabama versus this 1 through 8 or 1 through 7. Alabama right now is a top 4 team, if not the best team in college football. Nobody wants to deal with Jalen Milroe. I promise you, nobody wants to go against Alabama's defense. I promise you.
I 100% agree. And I want to expand upon something you said, because one of the things I told you before we started, my background before going into sports so heavily was in debate. It was in speech. It was in the legal world. So I approach all my argumentation, all my analysis, much like I would an argument. And when I look at this, the committee is trying to say we want to value games played while simultaneously saying, hey, Oregon is a top 15 offense and a top 15 defense. Kyle, if we're doing that, why would anybody be inclined to schedule anybody? Like, why wouldn't Alabama just schedule Bishop Sycamore in week 2, go thump on them because they're being penalized for playing a top 10 team? Alabama's strength of schedule is better than any team here. The only team in this group that has a comparable strength of schedule to Alabama right now is Texas. They are the only other team in the top college football playoff rankings that hold 3 ranked wins. It's just Bama and Texas. How in the world is Oregon ahead of both of them? I sent out that poll. I want to see what the people are thinking. How do you think this ends up?
Well, I mean, considering the fact that Oregon has USC this weekend, I mean, you look at the top 8, they're all favorites this weekend. The closest one is Michigan, who, by the way, will start their season right now. You talk about the lightest schedule in college football. It's Michigan, 100%. Their athletic director, once again, is on the committee. Now, he can't contribute in terms of ranking the teams. And why are you even on the committee to begin with, right? Like, when you are to a team so close and everything that's going on around Michigan, I get it. It's only allegations, but it's still happening right now. Now, they are a 4-point favorite against Penn State on the road in Happy Valley. We'll see how that turns out. They also have to play Ohio State. Ohio State is, a 31.5-point favorite against Michigan State. So I think the Big Ten teams continue to move on. Florida State taking on Miami, where they're a 14-point favorite. And then you have other teams like Alabama, who's a 10-point favorite against Kentucky. Now, this is interesting. Listen to this right here, okay? Let me pause. The Kentucky athletic director, the lone rep for the SEC is the AD at Kentucky. He's going to have a front row ticket to watch Alabama this weekend, okay? He's already seen Georgia, and Georgia went in there and they took care of business against Kentucky. But now he's going to have a front row seat at this new Alabama team. And this is what's really dynamic about this Alabama team is how they have transformed from week 2 to now. I mean, this is a completely different team. And I think it was honestly by design by Coach Saban. You know, everybody says he's always playing chess and everybody's playing checkers. Well, I think it was kind of by design that he had to build a complete team. Could he have just ran Jalen Milroe throughout the entire season and won every single game by whatever? Yeah, of course. But I think he wanted to build that offense. He wanted to build a continuity with Tommy Rees and with Jalen Milroe. He wanted to build up those wide receivers. Now with Alabama using Kendrick Law, Jam Miller, other components of that offense, you do not want to deal with Alabama's offense at all. I promise you. And I think if they just need to take over, they're just going to be like, look, Jalen, go out and win the game. He was clocked at 20 miles per hour in this last game against LSU, had 4 rushing touchdowns. They had 2 more from Jace and Roydell. This team is playing at an ultra high level, plus their defense is great. So the injury report real quick, Deontay Lawson, inside linebacker, signal caller, looks like he'll be out this weekend. That's an important piece of news. But then you have Jahad Campbell and Trez Marshall. Trez Marshall is in from Georgia. And then Jalen Key looks likely to be out as well. He's our safety. And what Alabama will most likely do, I'm thinking, is they'll either put Christian Story at safety or they'll put Malachi Moore back there, slide Taron Arnold to the star position, and then put Trey Amos at the corner position. So Alabama has depth within that secondary, going to be missing, maybe 2 starters, and they're going to be challenged by Kentucky's running game. But again, it's been hard for anybody to run against Alabama this season. So Alabama, a 10-point favorite. All the top 8 teams are favorites this week going in.
Yeah, I want to hit a question real fast. Connor Garrett asks, do you think that if Penn State beats Michigan, they will fall behind Alabama because Alabama has a better loss? Yeah. If Penn State beats Michigan, there is absolutely no argument that anybody could muster to put Michigan ahead of Alabama. They don't have any marquee wins. Mm-hmm. Their strength of schedule is not there, and they would have had a worse loss. So by every possible metric, Connor, you hit the nail on the head. Michigan would have to fall behind Alabama. They'd have to be the lowest of the 1-loss ranked teams. They'd fall below PSU because Penn State would have beaten them. So the Big Ten will take care of itself. We have this Penn State, Michigan, as Kyle said, Ohio State, Michigan still to play. The Big Ten will take care of themselves. I have one more scenario I want to run through, and then we'll transition. Because before we talk about Kentucky, we do need to talk about LSU because that was such a big win. If we get into a situation where let's just assume Ohio State wins out, they're good. Alabama wins out, knocks Georgia out. Florida State is in. Mm-hmm. Let's assume Texas wins out. They're in. Mm-hmm. Oregon beats Washington. What does the College Football Playoff Committee do? Because now Alabama has the win over Georgia. Oregon has the win over Washington. And the way they've set it up, it would be Oregon, but that would be a slap in the face. Talk to me.
Well, I think, you look at where the rankings are right now, and considering the fact that they are each 1-loss teams and Oregon is still ahead, I think that tells you what's going to happen. I mean, for Alabama to leapfrog into the playoffs, I think everybody knows that Georgia has to be number 1 in the college football playoff rankings and Alabama to beat them in the SEC title game. But look where Georgia is right now. The team, the 2-time defending champ, who has also played a really light schedule up until that game against Missouri, and that was their first quality win. So you have Ohio State, who has 2 quality wins. Look, this committee loves Notre Dame, loves them. If Notre Dame loses another game, it's like they stay in the rankings. Notre Dame has lost 3 games. They're a good team. They are, but 3 losses on the season. They just lost to Clemson. Okay? But people love this Notre Dame team, and that's who Ohio State beat. Ohio State beat Notre Dame, and they beat Penn State. Those are their 2 wins. So they are ahead of Georgia. Georgia hasn't lost in how long? Sound off in the comment box. So I would think that, and I would argue, if Georgia beats Ole Miss this week, a good Ole Miss team, they're ranked number 9, that you put them at the number 1 spot. A lot of people forget that the halftime score between Rutgers and Ohio State, what was it? It was 9-7. And Rutgers was driving to put another touchdown on the board, and it was a pick 6, and Ohio State never looked back. Okay, Ohio State is a good team. Yeah, they are. But I think Georgia is the number 1 team, and it's interesting to see, these Pac-12 teams duel it out because they haven't played anybody. Now, they're good teams, and I like the quarterbacks for each of the team. Penix and Bo Nix, those are quality guys, and they have a great offense. But I think if the nightmare scenario for Alabama is the Big 12 team, the Big 10 teams win out, right? One of them, let's say Ohio State, and then Florida State. Who's going to beat them? Northern Alabama, who they play after Miami, or Florida on the road, or Louisville? Okay, so Florida, plus the chair is from the ACC. Okay, Florida State's in, Michigan, let's say Ohio State's in. That's 2 spots, okay? Then you have a Pac-12 team, Oregon, who beats an undefeated Washington in the Pac-12 championship. They're in. And then you have Texas. Well, what's Texas going to do? They have to, now Texas, they do have, this could get dicey for Texas. I know Quinn is back, but they're on the road against TCU. They're going to beat TCU. Then they go to Ames, Iowa, trap game. Sometimes it's dicey up there. Then they play Texas Tech. You got to score, 80 points to beat Texas Tech. And then they'll play likely Oklahoma State. I could see them losing one of those games. If they win, they're in because they have that head-to-head over Bama. And I know if Bama was to beat Georgia, I know what they would say. Well, this isn't the type of Georgia team that it's been in the past. And the head-to-head win, that was a playoff game in week 2, Alabama in Texas.
It was. And this is what kills me. I wouldn't have one argument for Texas to go in if Texas wins out. I would argue against Oregon, though, because then I would be like, you have 2 ranked wins. And if I'm not mistaken, they've only played a handful of teams that have a winning record. Like, if we look at the record of teams they played, I think it's just Utah. Don't quote me on that, but I think that they would have 2 ranked wins to Alabama's 4 ranked wins. That would be a slap in the face to Alabama. The one thing I would say about Texas is they would have 4 ranked wins as well. Yeah. No other 2 teams in the nation will have played as many ranked teams and has as many ranked wins as Texas and Bama. They should be in if they win out. Now, here's what I will say, man. We need to keep watch on that Louisville-Florida State game. That's one where if you're a Bama fan, circle, pray, make it come to fruition. Believe.
Yeah. I mean, look, if Georgia can finish out within this schedule, so it's kind of weird. If you're an Alabama fan, you really kind of have to hope for Georgia because these next 2 games are going to be challenging for Georgia, 100%. I mean, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin just said, Lane Kiffin once again is in the headlines. Every single week, he's a master at staying in the headlines. And with him going after that player, people love it. They want him so bad to be the next coach after Coach Saban. He needs a marquee victory, right? He hasn't been able to beat Saban. This is a great opportunity to beat Kirby Smart, right? Another former assistant of Nick Saban's. They want Lane to be the coach more than anything. This would be a tremendous job. With that said, Kirby Smart, he got some rat poison finally, some reverse rat poison for the first time this season. Hey, you guys aren't number 1. They don't believe in you. So now Georgia's like, okay, we don't have the target on our back. That's Ohio State. So I think them against Ole Miss, they're going to win that game. And then they travel to the road to play Tennessee up in Knoxville. That's a challenging game as well. That Tennessee team was a lot better than I thought. Josh Heupel's doing a good job with that squad. So if they're able to leapfrog to number 1, I think Bama, if they continue to do what they're going to do, I think that, if Alabama is able to beat that Georgia and slay that Bulldog in the SEC title game, it's going to be hard to leave them out. But man, this committee loves the Pac-12. They love it.
They love them. Yeah. I'm so glad you talked about Tennessee. We posed the question on a show last night. If you're a Tennessee fan, how excited are you about Josh Heupel? And my whole premise for the conversation was you don't have the quarterback that's automatic like you had last year. You don't have the deep threats that are necessary to that veer and shoot with the combination of the quarterback. You're winning games in spite of that with solid defense and a great rushing attack. And that would be encouraging. I do want to get your thoughts on this LSU win because here's something I want to bring to everybody's attention. Alabama has played several top 25 offenses in the nation. They just got done with the number 1 offense in the nation. They're holding them to an average of 19.9 points per game. Is Joyless Murder Ball back? I sure think so. It sure looks like it. I think this was a fantastic win. Holding LSU to under 30 is a task for anybody. Jaden Daniels might be the best quarterback in college football. Hot take, this year there's a ton of amazing quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels deserves to sit amongst all of them. I think this is a fantastic win, but Kyle, before I pass it to you, it was how Alabama got the win. LSU was bailing on their coverage. I don't know if you saw that, but they were playing really far off. They basically said, we're not going to let you beat us deep. And Milroe said, bet.
Yeah.
And he took what the defense gave. It was beautiful. I do want to let you know about this poll, though. I put out the, do you believe Alabama makes the college football playoff? We have 67% saying yes, and 7 people, 33% are voting smells of collusion, and you are my type of people. Kyle, talk to me about that LSU win.
Look, it was a great win over a great offense. I mean, that offense is really dynamic. Okay, here's my trivia for you guys inside the comment box. How many times was Malik Neighbors targeted? Do you know, Ty? Does anybody know? All right, I'm gonna let you guys marinate on that for a second. Okay, so what that win was, it was a great SEC win against Brian Kelly in a team that beat Alabama last year, right? So you came into this game and you wanted to have a little bit of redemption, and they did that. But the best thing about that game was they played 4 quarters of football. There was the score could have been different. Will Reichard missed 2 field goals, which were the first time he's missed field goals all season long. So Superman had a night off, and that touchdown right before the half, right? The game could have very well been, what is that, 48?
21 to 48.
There you go. Yeah, 48-21. That looks a lot different. So I think when you look to that type of a game, the biggest takeaway was Alabama played 4 consecutive quarters of football. Now, going into this next game, if I'm Coach Saban, I'm challenging them to do that again against Kentucky. I just mentioned that the Kentucky AD is on the committee. So you want to show that you can maintain that level of consistency. What that win did also was propel Florida State, because it was a very comparable score. I think Florida State beat LSU. Sign off in the comment box, or you can look it up, Ty. Was it 45-27? That was the score that Florida State beat LSU by. So that was a very comparable win. So
24-45.
There you go. So Florida State fans are like, look, we're just as good as Alabama. Who knows? They might be. It's all hypothetical, but Florida State thought that before when the two teams ran into each other a couple years ago at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So, look, I think that what it tells us is that Alabama has completely transformed, and it also tells us that Alabama's defense has been completely battle-tested, okay? Look at who they've went against this season. Steve Sarkisian in Texas and all of those elite wide receivers. Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart and the schematics that come along with Lane Kiffin. They went against the Texas A&M wide receivers. We talked about this last time. I know Bobby Petrino and Jimbo, nobody likes what's going on up top, but those wide receivers are really
ridiculous.
Good. And then you went up against Tennessee. Those wide receivers were much better than I thought they were going to be. And then you go up against Malik Neighbors. By the way, the trivia result is Malik Neighbors. No. Malik, that was Brian Thomas. He was targeted 4 times. Malik Neighbors was targeted 17 times by Jaden Daniels. 17, Ty. You're a numbers guy. That's crazy, right? Like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's insane.
I know. Like, so if you follow college football, you know, well, like 11 targets is a lot. 12 would be, whoa, that's crazy. But 17 is like unbelievable. But it tells us that this Bama team can play 4 quarters of football. Now, can they do that again? Can they do it against Chattanooga the following week and against Auburn on the road? So this team has been inconsistent, for more than they've been consistent. So, look, all eyes are on Alabama. You have the AD from Kentucky, eyes on, zeroed in. Everybody's looking at that 11 o'clock game. Take care of business, play 4 quarters of football, and all eyes will be watching Michigan, Penn State, and some of these other games that could go sideways. And Alabama knows that there is Bama fatigue that exists, but that second week loss, it hurt them 100%. They're penalized for playing a good team. Michigan, look at their schedule. Like, if you're out there, look at Michigan's schedule, look at Georgia's schedule, look at Oregon's schedule, look at Washington's schedule, and then come back to the comment box and talk about it.
There's no comparing them. There's absolutely zero comparison. That's why I said the only one-loss team that should feel exactly as Alabama feels, looking at Oregon right now with their hands up, being like, what do we have to do? Is Texas and Bama are being disrespected right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that just is what it is. I do want to talk about Kentucky, though, because I have long held a theory, Kyle, that you're going to have a real tough time beating Alabama if your premise and your way to get to point A to point B is running it down Alabama's throat.
Yeah.
That just seems like a recipe for disaster. And I know Deontay Lawson might not be there, but Tresman Marshall's a seasoned dude, and Jahad Campbell is playing unbelievable football.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember Leary is the quarterback there, but Kentucky Leary is not NC State Leary, right? They have not been the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a game where Alabama is going to look, like you said, to earn those style points. I think there's favorable matchups. This is a good Kentucky rushing defense, right? They're not bad in that aspect. I think Alabama has favorable matchups on the outside. Kentucky does have a cornerback who's been real stingy in terms of getting interceptions. I think he has 5 interceptions on the year, 2 return back to the crib. But Alabama has got a different caliber of weapon on the outside. Jalen Milroe is playing unbelievable football. And you know who we haven't talked about, Kyle? Tommy Rees.
Yeah.
The last 2 games, the first time you and I got together when we were here with Coach Smook, I made the point like, hey, Tommy Rees is just 4 years older than myself. I'm 28. He's 32. We could have been at high school at the same time. I bring that to your attention. Like Nick Saban trusted someone that young with the keys to not a Ferrari, the Ferrari.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing why Nick Saban did it. The past 2 games, his game plan has been masterful. Talk to me about Kentucky. Talk to me about Tommy Rees.
I think with Kentucky, I mean, clearly we're all kind of wondering about Leary and if he was going to be okay. I mean, he left the Mississippi State game. I think it said something got stuck in his eye and he had to leave, but he's back and he's at full strength, which is great. They have a really good running back who ran for 240 during the season. So he's a very capable running back. With that said, it's been really hard for anybody to run against Alabama this season. So you have to beat Alabama over the top. Alabama has been beat over the top by some of these offenses that they went with. I mean, that's what LSU did in the first round. That's what Tennessee did. That's how they scored their first points. There's this crazy stat floating around that against Ole Miss, Arkansas, Tennessee, and LSU in the second half, that Alabama has outscored those oppositions by 82-10 in the second half. Something crazy like that, which is mind-blowing, and it tells you that those are their style points, right? That's how they racked up their style points, not by these large margin of wins, but by the adjustments that they've made within the second half. So style points come in different areas. I think when you look to this game, the good news is for Alabama that Jason Roydell, those guys have been healthy. They've kept the football from being flipped over to the other side. Jalen Milroe is playing out of his mind right now. He's on absolute fire doing his thing. You're starting to see new combinations of Alabama. Like you said, Tommy Rees has done a really good job getting his players on the field. And I mean, let's talk about Isaiah Bond, who's been all over the place. He's fantastic. And then Kendrick Law, my goodness. I mean, we just had to talk about, we just got the opportunity to speak with Kendrick Law on Tuesday, and he was like, yeah, people compare me to Deebo Samuel. 100%. He's a guy that you can put in the backfield. He's extremely fast. He's very physical. And the thing about Alabama's wide receiving unit is outside of Jermaine Burton, who's became their guy, who was kind of quiet against LSU. And LSU, like you said, took away, the deep ball. But Isaiah Bond, Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, and Emmanuel Henderson, all those guys are sophomores. You know who else is a sophomore? Jalen Milroe. You know who else is a sophomore? Amari Niblack. You know who else is a sophomore? Jaden Roberts. Those are sophomores. And I think a lot of those guys played sophomoric at the beginning of the season. So now as guys grow up, they start to play more like juniors. And you're starting to see that from this team as they grow up. Same thing with Tommy Rees. I think when Tommy Rees came to Alabama, can you imagine coming from Notre Dame and that great football program and everything that comes with it, but coming to Bama and seeing all those guys, and you're just like, my goodness, how am I going to feed these guys? And I think it's taken him a while. I think he was a little bit overwhelmed. He has a new quarterback. He's getting new to the system. He wants to be aggressive. He's only 32 years old. He has a lot to prove. And, he's done a really good job in these last 2 games. Got to spill over to these last 3. Got to finish out strong and come up with some more dynamic plays to get the players the football for sure.
I mean, speaking of the youth of the team, man, you still have think of the guard combo.
Tyler Booker's a sophomore too.
Tyler Booker's a sophomore.
Jeez.
Caden Proctor, I know he's his
a freshman.
Lumps,
yep.
But he's really starting to play well.
Yes.
And I talked about this, I think, with you last week, Kyle. Caden Proctor is interesting because even against Arkansas and stuff, he would get beat by some easy stuff, but then they would send some more complex stunts at him that you would think, surely, you're like, that's going to get you. And he would pick that up flawlessly. Yeah. So he's an interesting character, and you're starting to see all of it come together. This Bama team has Caleb Downs is a true freshman.
Yeah.
I mean, all across the board, talent.
Keon Keeley hasn't even played. Justice Haynes hasn't played.
Yonze
Pierre hasn't played. Quay Russo hasn't played. I mean,
you still have Alexander.
Man, yeah, you're right. So, and you're right. Tyler Booker is a sophomore, and then Caden Proctor is a freshman. TJ Ferguson. He's coming back.
Olasa pushed them all too.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah. So look, what's happening? I know Saban's headlines today are, he's buying, 2 Mercedes spots for $700 million, and he added a Ferrari dealership and stuff like that. Yeah, I get all that stuff is taking place, but I don't know. Like Saban might go on, go out. Whenever he goes out, he's going out on a high note. And this team right here, I'm telling you. If you're out there and you like to bet and you have money to do it, Alabama plus 800 right now to win the national title. Plus 800. I mean, you're never going to get odds like that on Alabama again. So, look, this team, like you guys said in the comment box, going to find a way to make the playoffs. Alabama knows what they have to do. Every single game is an elimination game. Even against Chattanooga, it's an elimination game. Even if they don't perform well against Chattanooga and it's like tied at halftime or something like that, that matters. They won't make the playoffs because of something like that. So this team knows what they have to do. Saturday will give us another idea of where they are from a consistency standpoint. And the rest, you just got to kick back and just watch and believe in Jalen Milroe and kind of let the naysayers know that's been their mantra this year. And they've been rolling right now. This is the most dangerous team in college football. I don't think they lose again, period.
I don't either. I want to get into score predictions because I think Alabama wins big. But you know what you said that I love? Malachi Moore said it as well. And that's when it clicked. And I was like, oh, they get it. Like, obviously they do, but like they understand the ugly truth of style points. Yeah. Right? Something that I think a lot of us hate. Malachi Moore said, we've had an elimination game in our mind ever since Texas. Yeah. And really, ever since week 3, this team has been trending in an unbelievably positive direction. Yeah. But now let's get into our score prediction. Kyle, I think Bama wins big. Give me Bama 31, Kentucky 14. Once again, I think Kentucky gets that early break, and then Alabama keeps them scoreless in the second half.
Yeah, I was actually going to say 31, but since you did, I'll go 34. We'll add on a late field goal by Will Riker, and we'll go 10. We'll 34-10 Alabama.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think they
maybe even 34-7.
Hey, you're giving him the extra field goal that I didn't to make up for the 2 missed field goals. All things equal.
Yeah, I still have 1,000,000% confidence in Will Riker, and so should you. He's a finalist for the kicking award that just came out today. I mean, why wouldn't he be? What he's done on the season and throughout his career at Alabama has been amazing. The all-time leader in SEC in points still has an opportunity to be the all-time leading scorer in college football history, which is just remarkable.
That's insane. Yeah. No, I actually felt the opposite, Kyle. When he missed those 2 field goals, I looked at my wife, I stood up, and I cheered, and she's like, what he missed? And I said, we're back, baby. I was like, you don't get it. We're back. Yeah. She's like, I don't understand. And I was like, no, we sucked at field goal. We're back.
So someone said, they were like, look, we traded our souls for a good kicker, and this is what happened. The dynasty fell off. So now it only makes sense. You're right. With Alabama now missing field goals, now they're going to, I get what you're that's good.
We're back. We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure having you here this evening. Hop down to the comments. Let us know what you thought. Let us know how you think Alabama beats Kentucky. We love reading your comments. And this is the most interactive college football show you'll find on a major platform. Bleacher Report is giving the opportunity for fans such as yourself, such as Kyle and I, to all come together in a really unique way. And I think it's awesome. Kyle, before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you when you're regularly making content on one of the most notable college football channels on the entirety of YouTube?
Yeah, so simply Bama Football on YouTube, but of course, special thanks to Bleacher Report. And if you're out there and you're watching this on my channel, download the Bleacher Report app and definitely give these guys a follow. There's some amazing content. Also follow Ty. I mean, he does amazing work with Around the Sports Table. He's someone that is certainly on the rise. There's a lot of content creators, but he certainly has the passion. I love working with him. Really have a good chemistry here. So I really appreciate your work. I appreciate the grind more than anything, because in order to achieve good things, you have to put in the work, and you certainly do that, man. So I got respect for you, and thank you very much to Bleacher Report for having us on tonight.
Yeah, guys, always remember, life, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. I've been doing this for 2 years. I've made 1,400 videos before really people started paying attention. Yeah. You just got to grind it out. And yeah, people thought that you and I had been making content together for a while. I was like, no, that's just the second time we've ever talked. We just got each other. So This month is going to be fun, guys. Kyle and I coming together pretty much every Thursday, keeping you covered for all of your Alabama football news. Tell your loved ones to download the Bleacher Report app. Heck, I don't think it's wrong to say go on your brother or sister's phone and download Bleacher Report. I don't think that's wrong to ask for, but we'll see you next time, guys. Appreciate your evening. Kyle, appreciate you so much for being here, man.
All right, man. See you guys.
See ya.